Hello and welcome back to the Recovery Position. This is episode 2 with your host Kevin and my ever-growing colleague of recovery,
Warren Boa.
Loud as always, Warren. Thanks very much, buddy. We're getting more out of you each time though. That's not too bad. Right, Warren, saying as you're all up for it there, do you want to introduce our guest for the day?
Yes, sir. I'd like to thank everybody for coming back and listening to episode 2. Today on the show, we have the sparkling better half of Team McGowan. It's Sinead. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Better
Right.
half. I like that.
I heard that. That's all right. Right. So just the way we're going to do it, Sinead, we're just going to offer you up a question and then we'll just have a quick conversation around what we're asking. So this obviously for us has had a happy ending, but we want to get into the nitty gritty of what happened in the beginning of the relationship. So I suppose what we would like to know is if you could tell us a wee bit about what it was like in the beginning of the relationship, and I suppose through the separation as well, when I would have been in the throes of addiction. How was that for you?
I suppose what he's asking here is just, how did you put up with so much nonsense? That's essentially what the question is.
How long have we got here, guys? Have we got all night? I think at the very, very start, so if you want to go back right to the start, whenever we first started going out together, nothing was really an issue at that stage, because I suppose I was not in the throes, maybe I've gone out all the time, Kay. We were going out, having the crack, drinking, everything was grand. I think whenever the alarm bell started going for us, really, was kind of the minute that Kevin came, because at that point, that was time to grow up, really, for me, for the both of us. But Kev just didn't grow up, really, at that stage. I mean, I could go into a wee bit of detail, I suppose, about the kind of things that happened. Is that what you want to hear?
Well, whether it's what I want to hear and what we need to hear are two different things. But
just assassinate him. I'm on board for an assassination here.
I suppose with Kev, when it came to going out, so I suppose like a lot of dairy does this, because you go out and then you go on to a party after, whereas Kev just never ever knew how to go home, so he never left the parties, and then the next day, then if he did go to bed for a wee while, he had to start drinking straight away, and that did happen throughout the pregnancy, and we decided that we were going to move into a house together, and he was bringing people up to the house before we'd even moved in. I don't know why that didn't ring alarm bells for me at that time. It just didn't. I think I was too wrapped up in the fact that I was pregnant. But then I think the main thing, like the beginning of the end of the relationship for us, was whenever I was coming out of hospital. It was like day 3, and anybody listening that's had a baby will know that you have your baby blues during the 3rd day, so you're really down and crying and all that, and that's the day that I was getting out of hospital. And Kev was late to come. He was supposed to come up and collect us at 1 o'clock, but didn't arrive till like 3 or something, and was just, I don't even know why I even got into the car with him, with Kevin. I think I was just really ready to come home, but he was in a really bad, probably very little sleep in him, and just reeking of drink, and to be honest, I'm surprised looking back now. I can't believe I even got into the car with him and got to come home. But then there was like some stranger standing in the hallway to greet me with a can of harp in his hand, and there cans of harp all around the house, and the floor's all sticky, and where there'd been a party where it's just where they'd gone out to wet the baby's head, but it went out of control, and then it didn't end until probably it was like realization, Sinead's coming home now kind of thing. So that's how I was greeted out of coming out of hospital, from having Kevin on the lowest day that you can have. So that, I think, was like the beginning of the end. we stayed together for a year of Kevin's life, and Kev, you'll not mind me saying, it was like a year of hell. It was probably the worst year of my life. Just the nonsense, just the, oh, I feel bad saying that, it wasn't that bad. But it was just going to work, not coming home from work, drinking and work, going on to the bar after work, maybe coming home, then going out to play football, just never really being there, but never really understanding how I was feeling about all this. And I was off on maternity leave, but I was actually going to work on a second job to bring in money, because the maternity money is crap. So it should have been Kev doing all that kind of stuff, like going and doing the second job rather than me. But I had to do it because there was no sense of responsibility there at all. And we didn't talk about it. We argued about it a lot. But Kev could never see where I was coming from. I think he's mentioned it in one of these other social events that he just took it as nagging. He was being nagged. But for me, it was like, what is this? What is this? Like, this is not how this life is supposed to be. And that after the first year, that just went on, and then I couldn't go on anymore. Kev, you landed to my mummy's 60th, remember, full, and I had asked you not to come, but you came anyway. And you were not in a great way either. And I think it was the next day, then it was like, this isn't going to work.
Was it obvious to you at this point what was going on, or
no?
Would you?
No, I wouldn't have sat down and thought you had a problem. I was just too consumed by being a mommy, a first time mommy, and having Kevin, and you were just, to me, this wee gack that needed to grow up and wouldn't grow up. But that's just what I thought. I just thought, wait, you're just a wee gack. But no, I didn't think to myself at the time that you had a problem, and I still didn't think that for years and years and years. I didn't think that you had a problem with alcohol. I just thought that you had a wild lot of growing up to do.
I think sometimes you just don't really want to see what's in front of you as well too. My partner was similar. Like, at stages there, she'd have been running me to get my drugs, and I, like, no matter what sort of sob story I gave her, she was always still running me to do the same things, as much as it was hurting her. It was just simply because I asked, she was doing it, And I think my story started off awfully similar like Kev's as well too. It was started off with just partying, going out at the weekend, having a bit of crack, and then that slowly turned on me taking stuff during the week, and then I just turned on me taking stuff constantly all the time. I mean, eerily similar there. Like, I can only imagine what I put my wife through at times. Like, I'd like letting on I was going to shop and disappearing to Fusion for 2 days and not coming back, and but that all started off from a real bit of crack. Plus, we were out listening to music and that's it, and then that was never enough. Then party drugs turned on the normal drugs, and then it turned on the prescription drugs, and then it just kept going and going and going. Like,
spiraled. And when I would say that maybe a lot of people would start off in that way. Like, this Derry has like a kind of drinking culture, and a lot of people do have parties afterwards, and you don't really go home after the bars. But Kev, he just always kind of took it to the next level, but had been doing that since before I'd met him. People used to say to me, he's mad. So he'd been doing all that since before I'd met him. But I think then, kind of, as you say, as it happened with you, weren't it maybe spiraled more then?
I think it's at some level running away from the environment as well too. Home life wasn't always brilliant for me and stuff like that, and I always kind of struggled with a normality aspect of it. Like, I would rather be running around off my head, not really thinking about anything of what was happening. I never really wanted to grow up, basically. Like, it was too sore for me to do normal stuff. I always wanted to be out of my head and having a bit of crack, like, But what goes up always has to come down at some stage. Like, I just think if I had my partner, to be honest with you, I don't even know if I would be here today if it wasn't for her. Like, I think I would maybe in some aspects still be doing the same silly things that I was doing. Like, so I'm glad that she stayed around as well.
Yeah. Well, like, I stayed around, I suppose, a wee bit in the background. I think it had to end after that first year. It had to end, or we would have really, I think, really hated each other, because I couldn't understand why Kev was behaving in this way, and why isn't he just going to grow up and start being responsible. And I think he just couldn't understand why I was feeling like that. I think because for you, Kev, it was just like you're just trying to have a bit of fun or whatever. So it was better, and now looking back, I think for Kevin, our son, that we split up in that way, because Kevin's lucky that the two of us had the mentality that no matter what was going on between us, that he was still going to see his mum and daddy all the time. So that was always the case. That's never not happened. And I think we were mature enough to like co-parent in a really good way. And I know that a lot of people were rooting for us, I think, to get back together because we got on so well in that way. But it took until Kev got sober for me to be able to do that, because I didn't want to be having to look after him as well as Kevin. I didn't want another son. It didn't appeal to me to have someone that didn't want to be like not like just being a wee bit more mature and holding down a job and just being in the same level as me. Because like for me, I'm very how do I want to explain myself? Like got a lot of determination and was always determined to build a really nice life for Kevin and didn't want him to want for anything. But Kev didn't have that mindset at then. He couldn't hold down a job. He couldn't, if he had he never had any money, or it was just always skimped, and that didn't appeal to me. I didn't want that for myself. I didn't want to be with somebody like that. But at the same time, it was so frustrating because we got on so well, and we used to have wild crack together, like because Kev is funny sometimes. We had wild crack together, and we but we just couldn't be with him. I couldn't have him as I said, I don't repeat myself, I didn't want to have to look after another person, or I didn't want to have the worry of, is he not going to come home, or is it going to be, the way it was that first year? Is that how it's going to be? Like, is that how our life's going to be? That's not what I wanted. So I was in the background for those 7 years, but not fully there really either. And I know, Kev, it was frustrating a few times because there was a lot of won't we over the years, but I couldn't commit whilst you were going on like that.
I mean, that makes complete sense. Even listening to you now talking about having this perfect life for Kevin, like, why wouldn't I want that? You know what I mean? It would seem strange to anybody listening to this that maybe hasn't gone through addiction or hasn't seen somebody in addiction. I mean, why wouldn't somebody want that? Why wouldn't they have the determination to make that happen? And I would have been so wrapped up in just thinking about, when am I going drinking again? When am I having a bit of crack again? And it was always about the crack for me. The crack was wrapped up in drink and drugs. That's just the way it was, and that's where my head was. So I can fully understand why that would have been difficult for you to be experiencing.
But you're saying that to me now, but you couldn't understand that then.
No.
And for you, it was like, if I would even try and hold that type of a conversation with you, it was completely on the defensive straight away, and then back to probably the feeling that I'm nagging you again. And there's been a lot of times that we've tried to have that form of a conversation, and you were in the house, and then you would just get up and storm out of the house and slam doors and all. And then, like, looking at that then at the time, Kevin being in the house even, and then it was me that had to pick it all up with Kevin, because he would start crying. Where's Daddy? Why is Daddy not here now? Even though you only been down for dropping him down or something, but it used to storm out, and so you couldn't see that. We couldn't have those sorts of conversations then because of your mentality or your mindset.
I think it's very raw as well too. You don't want to look inward. You know the problem's there, and you know the problem's yours, but you just don't want to see it. You'd rather ice it over with something else. You'd rather take a drug, or you'd rather take a drink, and you'd rather forget about it. The last thing you want to do is admit that you have a problem. And it's funny that that's the first stage of recovery. Admitting, look, there's something wrong here. I need to fix it. What can I do? First, admitting to yourself, and then admitting to other people. I think the tricky thing about the conversation we're having here too is people with addiction will get the lengths that another addict will go to get high or to forget about what's going on in their daily life. I think somebody that's never been in recovery or has never had a problem as such doesn't understand how big and how massive that is and how soul destroying that is. Now, that's not to say that it should be allowed to go on simply because of what it is. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, people have to look at themselves and decide that it needs fixed, or they need to end their recovery, there is a problem there, But it's not nice for everybody involved. It's not nice for partners. It's not nice for the person going through it. Like, it's a horrible situation. And I think that's exactly what we're trying to do at ARC as well too, is they open the conversation of that and, you know, tell people, look, there's a lot of people suffering for the same thing. This is how we go about maybe trying to fix it, you know, and repairing relationships. Like,
and that's so, it's so funny that you say that, because you're 100% right. The other person, like on my side of it, like I had no clue what it was like for Kev, and even whenever he decided that he was going to get treatment, I really wanted to feel so proud of him, but I didn't feel proud of him like at that stage, but I wanted to. That's the key for me. I wanted to. And so then there was support available for like the likes of me, and I took it and on and went to counselling and spoke it out with someone and said, like, I want to be able to be supportive. I want to support him, but I just can't. I think I was just still so hurt from everything that had gone on over the years, and I just couldn't be proud of him there and then. So I took on sorry, Kev, please edit this out. I don't know where I'm going with this part.
It don't matter.
I know what I'm saying, but I just took a blank. Right, let's start that again.
I'm keeping everybody that on.
No, I
just want to say before we start here, I appreciate how raw it's us as well too, to be honest with you. Like, I appreciate that much you're sharing here as well too. I know it can't be easy. I know it can't be easy for both of you. Like, and I think that this will be really good. I think people will really appreciate this as well too. Like,
because I think the likes of ARC is because all this campaign and getting people talk, like, this all ties on with what I was going to say about the getting out with speaking to counsellors and also.
I think there is two aspects there as well too. There's the part where we don't talk about it as a society, you know, we just don't talk about addiction or anything. It's just left by the wayside. Like, nobody really wants to look at it. It's a wee sort of ugly thing in the corner. Nobody wants to admit. And then the other part as well too is you don't want to see your partner something flawed. You know, you don't want to admit that maybe there's a wee problem there. You know, this is a person you've chosen. You want this person to be up on the pedestal, and they admit that there maybe is an addiction problem there or something along them lines, knocks them down off that pedestal. Like, maybe sees them weak in your eyes, or they feel weak or something. Like, so I think there's just a culture where we just ice it over and don't speak about it and don't try to understand it simply because of those things. Like,
but that's spot on, and I think the point you're making there, Sinead, was that when you talked it out, you were able to see that there is other ways of coming at this, but you need to sort of look at yourself as well to see if you can get yourself to be in that position to accept what's going on.
Because I definitely would say that I'm on a journey with this now as well with you, because as I said, I wasn't at a place where I could forgive initially, and I think I even said that to you down in White Oaks, because as you know yourself, I went through the family days and stuff, and I needed that to be able to have a bit of closure for myself as well, I think. And I mean, even doing these podcasts and this is helpful for us to sit and talk, the air this out. Maybe might not be helpful for you. But,
definitely helpful for me.
I'm loving this, Kim. I think it's definitely something that if people are listening and they are that they have got someone in their lives that's going through addiction, or even recovery, I think it's very, very important that they get help for themselves as well, and they speak to someone professionally in that way, and as well as obviously the person, but even family members. Like, one of my biggest regrets is not speaking to your mommy and me sooner, because we had so many open, honest conversations just before you went into treatment and whilst you were in there. But I mean, that was 7 years of it going on. I really wish that I had opened up to them that wee bit sooner. You know, I don't know if it would have made any difference, but it was helpful at then that we spoke on how we did. So I think speaking out to counsellors and family members is really, really helpful. And all the stuff that ARC is doing now in this No Shame campaign, it's like really, it's amazing. And even the challenge, having the walk of no shame challenge, that the many people that are doing it to try and raise this awareness, it's It's brilliant. It's needed here in this town, 100%.
See the conversation with my mother as well too. Like my mother, I think knew on some level how deep my addiction was, but because obviously being her son and she loved me, she would do anything in her power to help me at that specific time. Whether that was money for drugs, whether it was giving me tablets that was out of her cupboard. It didn't really help me being that open and honest about it with her, you know. A lot of my family kind of knew, we just kind of iced it over as well. So, you know, nobody really talked about it. It was more like a joke or something along them lines. Like my sister, God love her, she would have never lent me. See, if I'd asked her for a loan of money, I would have got the third degree on that. I would have had to provide receipts and times and what I was spending on. And the funny aspect is she was the only one was real about it. Like she was the only one was realistic, telling me to wise up. Everybody else is sort of answering the subject. The funny thing is now, she would think nothing of the me saving her £800 now, not asking me what it's going on, simply because she knows it's not going on drugs. Like, but she wouldn't have lent me a tenner before.
Later.
I think there's a couple of words there: openness and honesty. I think they're huge on recovery, but those conversations are never easy to have until you have them. But then I think when you find if you have one, it becomes so much easier and life becomes a lot simpler as well, because you're not sort of dancing around the topic at all. You're just direct. I suppose that's how you get things done. I suppose that's why it's such a big pillar in recovery.
But I mean, it's not always easy. Like we didn't find that easy. I mean, I wrote
No.
you a letter, a 4-page letter, because I couldn't talk to you. And then you wrote me a letter then because you couldn't talk to me. So it's not always as easy that way, I think. So that's something that comes then, I think, in time too. We had to have a wee bit of help, didn't we? And we had a wee constant session with an amazing person to help us get on track. But I think it's something that gets easier, but it's not easier. It's not as easy straight away.
Yeah, because spoke to me before about those family days that you touched on earlier as well too, about how hard they were. That they were really hard sessions at the time as well too, you know. So, you know, I haven't went through them myself, thank God, because they don't sound fun, but they definitely sound like they helped.
They're not so good for the person that's listening to it all, I suppose, but it's stuff that does really need to be said. I guess you need to understand what the other family members are feeling.
I think that's what comes down to the open and honesty aspect there as well too, isn't it? Just that the person has to hear what you're saying at that time.
Look, we could probably sit here and rub the back of me all day long about what went wrong in the relationship. But I think what might be helpful for people as well, if they are listening, is where it started to go right. I'll just say, you know, we're in a very happy position at the minute, but even in recovery, that wasn't plain sailing. That wasn't like, okay, he's in recovery and bang, everything was happy days, because there was still a lot of work with him. What's your experience, Sinead, been of that? Say after, I mean, we've talked a wee bit about there how you didn't necessarily feel proud initially. Once you had that support through White Oaks, talk to us a wee bit about that. How was that for you?
So it was exciting initially because you were coming out and everything was going to change and it was going to be all roses and rainbows. But the trust element wasn't there. And I really wanted it to be there, but I didn't trust you. And it's understandable too after everything that's gone on. And for me, my worry then was the working scenario. So you hadn't been able to properly hold down a job. As I've said already, that I would be, you know, a worker, conscientious, and, you know, I would want to be trying to better myself all the time. And that's just the way that I am and the way I'm always going to be. But I started thinking to myself that you weren't, because you weren't ready to work initially, I started thinking, but how long is this going to go on for now? So, so when are you going to get a job, basically? So how long do we wait now until how long does this recovery go on until you start working? And I just was worried about that, and just worried about the drinking too as well. And like, as you know yourself, there was a trip come to Newcastle 5 months into your recovery, and that where you were going to be taking Kevin yourself over to a football match, and that was a massive panic for me when I got told that, and when I found that out, you were only 3 months in, and I didn't trust you at that point, and I didn't want Kevin to go. When I came out right and said it, I don't want it, and I thought, I'm his mommy, I'm gonna put my foot down. But then we talked about that as well, and it was as you were saying, you need to take a massive leap of faith here, and I knew then that I had to be able to build the trust with you. I needed to take that leap of faith. So I needed to have an itinerary of what was going on and where you were going to be, and basically answer my texts whenever I text. But I'm glad that I did it, as much as it was a wee bit of a nightmare for us both at the time. I'm glad I did let it, because that's whenever I was able to start building the trust a wee bit then. And then for us, I think what really helped us along, which is crazy to say, but it was COVID and the pandemic, because you came down to you moved in because I was working full time, and it was either you're not going to see Kevin for however long, or you needed to be like in our bubble kind of thing. And for us, that was the turning point for us, really, because it was an insight of, right, this is how it could be, and this is actually the road that we could go on now. We haven't looked back since, have we?
I like that a lot. I like that a lot. You house trained them.
I told him how to clean his
hey.
dishes.
Can't house train the dog, but she can house train me.
Sinead, I would just add, was a lot of them fears due to the free time? I know, like, people early recovery don't do well with free time. That's when the mind wanders and you end up doing something else. You're not focused on the task at hand. Was that what the worry was, that they had too much free time in a sense? Or was it more financial just without the job?
A wee bit of both, because Kev was kind of the sort of person that he was always skint anyway. So I'd been doing the past 7 years, like buying a house, making sure that I paid everything myself. And like, I'm not afraid to say that I did struggle with wild anxiety over those 7 years. I found it really difficult doing everything on my own. And the good thing about having Kev back now is, like, all those anxieties have completely gone away, which is amazing. But my worries, I think, was I was just worried that he would just get too comfortable. I just was thought,
a pouch.
no, just what if he thinks that I'm going to carry him through life? That's not what that's what I thought. What if he thinks?
My missus was the same. Like, she worked all her life, like, where I just sat about in the dole and done all her nefarious things. Like, I do get that as well. Like, and she was always the one that carried me, and again, I had never had any money, but I think that's part and parcel with what we're doing as well. You're always spending it on something that that you shouldn't be spending it on. I think, like, I always complain that I never made enough money on my job. I need a better job, I need more money, and blah blah blah. But whenever I took all the narcotics and the alcohol and all the equation, it wasn't that I needed a better job or needed more money. What it was doing was spending it on stupid stuff that I didn't need to spend it on. Like, I think one of the things of recovery is you end up with an abundance of money simply because you're not spending it on anything like it. Like, if you're putting 300 pounds worth of cocaine up your nose to do again, that's going to leave a pretty heavy dent. And if you're only in a minimum wage worker, like,
I know exactly. It's exactly it. So, so because Kev never really had to sit and have those responsibilities that I had for those 7 years, like, Kev didn't have any of those responsibilities. He didn't have a clue what it was like to run a house, to keep a child, to get all the bills paid. He had no idea, and I was just worried then, thinking, oh, he thinks he's going to come in here now and just sit and live like a king, and I'm going to carry him and Kevin. No. So
Well, it's funny how we said this was going to be the good bit of the conversation, and we aren't going to rip the back out of Kevin here.
See, to be fair, I've been trying to get him to go on the Xbox for 2 months and he won't go on it. Like, so that does show some sort of signs of maturity there. Like,
no, I mean, I'm going to stick up. I was going to stick up for myself a bit here if I'm allowed enough. I mean, there's other things going on. I'm studying. I have got on my ARC. I'm working with ARC. Just let me defend myself. I'm only joking. That defensive side's completely gone. That's just a joke. I fully understand everything that you're saying, obviously, which is why I'm studying, which is why I'm out working with ARC, which is why these changes are happening. I understand the responsibilities are there that I wouldn't even have considered in the past. But it's always a work in progress. I suppose you touched on that conversation we had to have with Gary Mack, the wonderful Gary Mack. Basically, that opened up a new line of communication for us, and it was as simple as sitting down with somebody outside ourselves, outside of our group of friends, outside our families, and having that conversation together with almost a mediator there. How important do you think that was, and do you think that that's something that's required for people in relationships within
100%,
recovery or addiction?
100%, because I mean, I think we communicated it well at times, but sometimes we couldn't get across what we were both feeling to each other. So then we just needed that wee bit of help. So that was a massive help, wasn't it? Really, it was only about an hour of a conversation, but it was just so helpful, and everything's great now. But I mean, if we would need to do that again down the line, I would think nothing of it. Having another chat with somebody, I think it's really, really needed. I just think it's needed. It's just needed for people to get an outsider's opinion or something. I don't know. I just think, as you say, a mediator or somebody completely impartial and just offer bits of advice to each other.
Like, and
100%.
Somebody looking at it from the outside as well too will always be able to give you a wee bit of a different perspective as well. You know, I'm around it like. It doesn't always help. Somebody you trust, and sometimes somebody doesn't even, you don't even trust it. You don't even know if you're one to, you know, open up to them, and that can help as well too. You know, I think it's important to talk about it.
Yeah, oh, definitely, and it helped us massively. It was crazy how just one wee hour conversation just helped.
I think it's what followed after that as well, was that the conversations we had, they were almost trained by that one conversation, where it wasn't about what can you do for me, but it almost turned into what can I do for you. And in asking that question, it sort of eased any sort of, there was no offensiveness from either of us, and there was no defensiveness, but it was open and it was honest, and it was asking, how can I help this relationship, as opposed to what can you do for me. And it's like, I like the conversations we have now, and even it's still not like, it's always going to be a work in progress, and I think that's going to be the same for everybody, really, and not just people in recovery or addiction or going through this journey, but any relationship, it's going to be a work in progress. Just recently, I wasn't feeling the Georgie best, and it took me even a couple of days to mention it, but I was able to say it instead of keeping it to myself, and there was no necessary explanation for why I was feeling low, and I didn't have to explain it. I just had to say to you, look, I don't know what it is, I'm just at one of those points. But having said that, you actually started feeling better, and I started to rise on myself a bit. And I was thinking, I might not even say it.
There I was about to be, oh, is it me? Is it this voice? What is it?
We're sort of trained not to share feelings as well too. I think it's just the society we're brought up in. You just kind of keep it to yourself and batter on and get on with it. Like, and that's why I think that slogan, "It's okay not to be okay," works really well. It just hits on the nose. I would be the same. I would be afraid to open up. I would rather run around me with a crab head on me and just not take people on, rather than tell people exactly what's going on. And 9 times out of 10, I don't even know what's going on. I'm just grumpy for nothing. Like, I think I'm my father some days. Like, he walked around with a big sour face on him, like, but he wasn't. He was the happiest man in the world. It's hard to open up. Like, I think the more you share with your partner what's going on, the better it can possibly get.
I say the same to you, Kev. Well, back form the day, and you say why, and I don't know. And then after I say it, I'm like, oh, I'm actually all right.
Look, I think we've ripped the back of me enough. That's no, I think that's been a lot's been covered there. We've done really, really well. I think it's time now to get to the serious stuff. So we have 3 quick fire questions coming at you. I'm going to open it up this time around. I allowed Born the chance to open it up last time, and then he ended up getting to ask my favourite question, which I wasn't too happy about. So I'll open it up this time, and I'll get my favourite question out of it. But first of all, I know that you enjoy a bit of exercise as well, Sinead. So, what is the worst exercise you could possibly inflict on yourself? What's your opinion?
What?
Squats.
With the bar and the weights on the end.
Right.
And do you know why? Because I panic that if I get stuck down and I can't get back up.
Just flatten yourself.
You would hit Jake Noonan's classes in. He thinks that 300 squats is a good start.
Oh, jeegers. I would hate it.
So, question number 2: when you're not running about cleaning up after Kev, the dog, and Kevin, what do you like to do on your downtime? How do you relax?
Do you know this is going to sound so yucky? But see, since doing this challenge, I absolutely love getting out a walk. I love it. And just sticking the headphones in. Aye. Sticking the headphones in and away you go. Love it.
Right. That's good, they know. Fair play. Right. And the big one, Sinead, really bear in mind, I could leave if you don't get the right answer here, right? So
choose wisely.
Choose wisely. What is your favourite biscuit?
Okay, if you know I'm flat out trying to be good all the time, you're coming out with this question. Can't beat a good chunky cookie.
If I keep on score, that's 2 shows and 2 guests. This is the cookie now,
I'm sort of all right with.
What's them packets that you had? There's only a couple in them, but they're big chunky ones.
The Fox's
Hobnobs.
Chunky Cookies. Oh, I like what you did, Warren.
What did you say, Warren?
Hobnobs.
Hobnobs. There never seems to be enough on the packet.
I'm going to allow you the chunky cookie, because with a cup of tea, it's pretty damn good. It's no hobnob. It's definitely no hobnob, but it's up there. So I'll allow it. I'm going to stay. I'm going to stay. I'm not moving out.
You better hope a third guest doesn't come out with a cookie for their answer. You're going to go off like a time bomb. So, Sinead, the last question is, obviously I spoke a wee bit about it too, but would you have any advice to anybody that's out there that's going through having a loved one that's kind of in the throes of addiction? What advice could you possibly give them to make it that wee bit easier for them?
I think for sure you are going to need to be in the position to support that person, and you're not going to feel like that you want to support them at some point. So best thing to do is maybe get a wee bit of support yourself to get yourself into that frame of mind. I think, and there's loads of places that can offer you the support. I think once you talk it through with someone, then you can start to understand how the person is, and then be there to support them. But that's what my advice would be: to speak to someone who don't just go through it on your own.
Great question. Great answer. Right. I think that's pretty much us done then. Just need to take this time, obviously, to thank the beautiful Sinead and my wonderful co-host, Warren Wazzy V. I love you, buddy.
That name better not stick. I want to thank you for coming on and giving Kev multiple redners as well too. This we can't see, but Kev said the faces matter most of the time, and it's been brilliant. It's been wonderful.
Thanks very much.
Having me.
No, thank you. All right, folks. Love yous both. We'll leave it at that. Have a good one.
Next week's guest.
Oh, that's right. Nearly forgot there. Next month's guest.
1 month. There you go. Clocks are forward on there. I'm all over.
So next month we hope to have the one, the only Mr. Wim Hof.
Ooh.
Quick disclaimer. We may not have Dr. Wim Hof.
If we don't have him, we'll probably have the dare side version, which is Mr. Brendan Tracy. Now that's if he's not too busy watching his newborn daughter, Ada.
Oh, well, folks, that's another episode done for this month. We'll tune in next month and we'll catch up then again. See you on the flip side.